بسم اللہ الرحمن الرحیم بر محمد وآل محمد صلوات اللہم صلی علی محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجہم. Mu'mineen, we are about to start our program with the recitation of the Holy Quran. So once again, let us please welcome our reciter with a loud salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajil farajhum.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdu Rabbin Nas, Malikin Nas, Ilahin Nas, min sharri waswasil khannas, alladhi yuwaswisu fi sudurin nas, minal jinnati wan nas.
Jazakallah. I would now like to invite Brother Ayyam to please recite the first salam. Ba'az buland salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
بر محمد و آل محمد صلوات. آج رخصت ہو رہی ہے تم سے زہرا یا علی. آج رخصت ہو رہی ہے تم سے زہرا یا علی. پردہ شب میں میری میت اٹھانا یا علی. آج رخصت ہو رہی ہے تم سے زہرا یا علی. پس لیا توڑی گئی کیسے بتلاؤں گی میں حشر کے میدان میں بھی اس حال میں آؤں گی میں. ہاتھ پہلو سے نہ تم میرا ہٹانا یا علی. آج رخصت ہو رہی ہے تم سے زہرا یا علی. وہ مصیبت آپ نے اچھا ہوا دیکھی نہیں. اب میں سیدھے ہاتھ سے تسبیح پڑھ سکتی نہیں. ایسا کنفزنے ہے مارا تازیانہ یا علی. آج رخصت ہو رہی ہے تم سے زہرا یا علی. کہتی ہے زینب یہ مجھ سے دیکھ کر چہرہ میرا آپ کے رخسار پر یہ نیل ہے کیسا پرا. میں نے کھایا ہے تماچا مت بتانا یا علی. آج رخصت ہو رہی ہے تم سے زہرا یا علی، تازیان کی اذیت کا اٹھانا ایک طرف، وہ تماچے قتل محسن در جلانا ایک طرف، سب سے مشکل تھا مگر دربار جانا یا علی، آج رخصت ہو رہی ہے تم سے زہرا یا علی، جب میری تلقین پر نہ یاد کر لینا ذرا، در کے گھیرنے سے میرا بازو بھی ہے ٹوٹا ہوا، میرے شانوں کو ذرا دھیرے ہلانا یا علی، آج رخصت ہو رہی ہے تم سے زہرا یا علی، آج رخصت ہو رہی ہے تم سے زہرا یا علی، بر محمد و آل محمد صلی اللہ علیہ وسلم.
Ahsan, Brother Ayan. Jazakallah. I would now like to invite Brother Hadi Kanani to please recite a salam. Ba'awaz buland salawat.
محمد و آل محمد صلوات. کہاں جائے آخر بیابان ہر سو، شکستہ ہے پہلو اکیلی ہے زہرا، کہاں جائے آخر بیابان ہے سو، شکستہ ہے پہلو اکیلی ہے زہرا، رونے پا پہرا مصائب کا صحرا، اکیلی ہے زہرا، در فاطمہ کو جلایا ہے تم نے، کیا وعدہ اپنا بھلایا ہے تم نے، در فاطمہ کو جلایا ہے تم نے، کیا وعدہ اپنا بھلایا ہے تم نے، تماچے نہ مارو مسلمانوں جاؤ، علی کو بلاؤ اکیلی ہے زہرا، رونے پا پہرا مصائب کا صحرا اکیلی ہے زہرا بیاں کس سے جا کر کروں درد اپنا ہے غیروں کی دنیا نہیں کوئی اپنا بیاں کس سے جا کر کروں درد اپنا ہے غیروں کی دنیا نہیں کوئی اپنا کوئی جا کے بابا سے کہہ دو یہ جا کر کہ لے جاؤ آ کر اکیلی ہے زہرا رونے پا پہرا مصائب کا صحرا اکیلی ہے زہرا اے لخت جگر حسن ابن حیدر یہ نانا کے پہلو میں سونے نہ دیں گر اے لخت جگر حسن ابن حیدر یہ نانا کے پہلو میں سونے نہ دیں گر تم آ جانا ماں تم آ جانا پہلو میں سو جانا ماں کی بقی میں یہاں پر اکیلی ہے زہرا رونے پا پہرا مصائب کا صحرا اکیلی ہے زہرا شاہ کربلا نے کہا رو کے ماں سے یہ مظلوم بیٹے نے مظلوم ماں سے شاہ کربلا نے کہا رو کے ماں سے یہ مظلوم بیٹے نے مظلوم ماں سے اکیلا ہوں میں بھی اکیلی ہے زینب اکیلے ہے بابا اکیلی ہے زہرا رونے پا پہرا مصائب کا صحرا اکیلی ہے زہرا سر مرگ آختر تھا زہرا کا نوحہ کب آؤ گے مہدی کب آؤ گے بیٹا سر مرگ آختر تھا زہرا کا نوحہ کب آؤ گے مہدی کب آؤ گے بیٹا خدا کے لیے اب یہ پردہ ہٹا دو چلے آؤ آؤ اکیلی ہے زہرا رونے پا پہرا مصائب کا صحرا اکیلی ہے زہرا محمد
Jazakallah, brother Hadi. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Respected scholar, elders, brothers and sisters in faith, Assalamu alaikum. My condolences once again to all Mu'mineen on this very sad occasion. May Imam Zamana Ajjalallahu Ta'ala Farajahu. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajjil farajahum. Accept our condolences. Shortly, the Sayyid will ascend the minbar. After the speech today, inshallah, we will have a short Q&A session with Sayyid Hasan. We will end tonight's program, inshallah, with Namaz al-Maghribain and Niyaz, which inshallah will be on time today. Once again, I would like to thank all our sustaining members, donors, volunteers, and program sponsors for their contributions that are helping CFK's vision come to fruition and enabling us to serve the community's social and religious needs. For information on how to become a sustaining member, please contact our membership director, Brother Asif Patel. For opportunities to donate and sponsor programs like tonight, please join the CFK WhatsApp group or visit cfkdfw.org. We are always looking for volunteers who can help behind the scenes. For those who are willing, please contact me, Brother Mazhar Abbas, Brother Asad Jafri, or any of the existing volunteers. I would like to request you all to now recite a Surah Fatiha and 3 times Surah Ikhlas for the marhumin of tonight's program sponsors, the marhumin who don't have anyone to pray for them, all our marhumin and the marhumin of the Ummah. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. I would now like to request the Sayyid to please ascend the minbar. Wa Muhammad wa ali Muhammad salawat.
One more time aloud, salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وبه نستعين لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم والحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين خاتم النبيين شفيع المذنبين رحمة للعالمين سيدنا والنبينا وحبيب قلوبنا والشفيع نفوسنا وطبيب ذنوبنا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد ثم الصلاة والسلام والتحية والإكرام على أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين من الأولين والآخرين إلى قيام يوم الدين أما بعد صلوات على محمد وعلى محمد. Mu'mineen, mu'minat, brothers and sisters in Islam and Iman, Salamun alaykum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh. So I want to quickly recap our discussion from last night, then move on to our topic for today. And I got everybody's feedback. There's a lot of questions, obviously. Most of them won't be addressed in the lecture itself. That's why after consulting with a few other members, it made sense to leave some time for a Q&A, right? Because a lot of these issues, again, I can address them from the minbar, but some of them, it's probably better if we have a back and forth. So that's why I wanted to make time for the Q&A after the program, inshallah. We started talking about the idea of Islam and Muslims coming under attack. Our ideas, our beliefs, our aqaid, our theology, everything. And those attacks can come from outside, from non-Muslims, whether Christian, Jew, atheist, whatever they are. They will attack our belief system and our practices. And nowadays, even Muslims themselves, Sunni Shia, are attacking the foundations of our belief. And one of their main targets are the sisters, are women, and the idea of women's rights or lack thereof in Islam. And we said that sometimes you and I are the ones who cause that internal damage, because when we try to respond to some of these issues of the reason for hijab and the issues with women's inheritance, whatever it is, we end up giving responses that, maybe was convincing to us and made sense. And let me clarify that. When I was, taking down some of these answers, it wasn't to say that they were wrong, but the idea is that maybe wrong time, wrong place, or incomplete or deficient. That's the idea. And sometimes you offer those answers to somebody, and they just laugh in your face like, what kind of answer is this? And then that makes you feel, your confidence in the deen is gone then. You say, okay, well, if that answer doesn't work for everybody else, maybe it doesn't work for me then. What really is my religion about? And we talked about how there have been different reactions to this idea. Sometimes you'll see Muslims who just don't want to talk to anybody anymore. They just keep away, say, I don't want my deen to get messed up. If I start talking to people and researching, then everything comes crashing down. So they just don't research, they don't ask questions, nothing. And that might be, a viable way to protect your deen. All right? I don't want to comment on that now, but that might be some reaction. Others, unfortunately, say, well, now we have to start changing everything in Islam. So we can't answer the questions about hijab, get rid of that. We can't answer questions about why women's inheritance is different, let's change that. Right? Every single thing will start to go. And then really that initial picture of Islam that was brought by Rasulullah Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Whatever is going on with many of these, extremist Muslims, both on the left and right, is completely different. It doesn't look anything like that Islam that was brought then. And some are doing that on purpose because they don't want it to look like that Islam of 1400 years ago. So what do we do then? How do we approach the issues? So the first thing we did was, okay, let's figure out what were we doing that was problematic or inefficient or deficient, right? So we went through the different methods. Sometimes when we answer them, we said one method is to look at the society of the pre-Islamic Arabs, the history, figure out what they were doing, and see how Islam brought a change to that. And we gave examples, right? With number one, female infanticide. That because they did not want to have daughters, they saw it as a curse and a plague, right? Because of that, they would, unfortunately, bury daughters alive. And Islam came and, eliminated that idea. So this is something looking at in history. We talked about marriage rights, dowry, that all of the practices of the Arabs, Islam came and wiped those out and changed them. Said, okay. We said another way that people will answer the question, not just historically or sociologically or societally, of what they were talking about then, is that they will just give a quick reaction to the argument, right? And they don't give a foolproof answer. So, the famous one is about this verse which claims that domestic abuse is allowed, that a man is able to put his hands on his wife, right? Given if she's nashuza, if she's disobedient, whatever. And again, the response is, it's not full on, harming. It's at most using a toothbrush, miswak, something like that. Again, what are we supposed to do with a response like that? It's even for ourselves, sometimes that doesn't make sense. Or the beginning of the ayah, right, of Surah Nisa, chapter or Surah 4, ayah 34, of that has that domestic abuse problem in it. The beginning says, "Ar-rijal qawwamuna ala nisa," and from there, many within the religion say that this means men are superior to women, and that's why they have all this specific type of wilaya. And then others will come and say, look, if that's what you feel, then you can't also claim that Islam has gender equality, right? Because you clearly have an ayah which says that's not the case. So don't force feed your own ideas into Islam. Your own book is saying that men are better. So then both Muslims and non-Muslims now, they have an issue to deal with over here. And again, we went through all the various different examples. We talked about hijab. Sometimes our response is that, yes, hijab is there to maintain the sort of physical purity of females because men are disgusting animals and women have to be protected from them, right? This general idea. We said, look, but if we think about it for a second, take another step forward, another step deeper, and if somebody else understands our practice as a Muslim, they'd say, okay, but why then are women covering up in namaz, in salah? If it's about protecting from the male gaze, if it's about, people need to know who I am and my intellect and my personality, not, what's on the outside, okay, great. Why are you covering in front of God then? In front of Allah? That argument doesn't hold up anymore. So maybe a part of the reason of hijab has to do with the physical aspect. Okay, sure. But it can't be the full picture. There's something else missing. And we said that this is usually the things that have not been discussed in our communities for a long time, for many reasons, which I don't want to get into, because that requires its own series. And this is when we start to get into the metaphysical, the philosophical, the spiritual, the irfani aspect of the deen that maybe we haven't heard before. And I mentioned the example that many of you've taken the Secrets of Salah course, right, with Sheikh Mahdi. And as he gives these teachings from the ulama, as they, you hear the words from Allama Tabatabai and Imam Khomeini and Ayatollah Bahjat about the secrets of Salah, it transforms the way that you pray. Now again, we can say, yes, namaz, prayer is like a dialogue with God. Like, okay, yeah, it makes sense, but let's go deeper than that, right? What do these, what does wiping in wudu mean? What does all this stuff mean? And when you hear the hadith from the words of the Ayyam, when you think about it in a deeper way, it changes and transforms the way that you act. And we said that is a big issue that all of us face, even those of us who are practicing Muslims, who want to practice. We want to practice the furu'ud-din, but sometimes our usul is a little shaky. So if we're able to strengthen and get a deeper understanding of the usul, perhaps in a more metaphysical, philosophical, irfani way, maybe that'll help us engage better with the furu'ud-din. But even in that thinking, there is one problem. And I want to address that first before we move on. If you can recite as-salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. How many of you have heard this before, or you yourselves may believe this? If I don't understand the reason for it, if I don't understand how it works, I'm not going to do it. For many individuals, again, I'm not trying to pick on sisters, but this is an argument that most of us have heard growing up. I need to fully understand hijab before I start to wear it, for example. Now again, not to focus on the hijab issue, I know somebody personally, like a good friend of mine, who said the same thing to me about salah. Said, look, I don't know these words that I'm saying. I don't know the translation of any of this in namaz. I know basic, okay, we're praising and thanking God, that's it. But I don't know what I'm saying. If I don't know what I'm saying, what's the point in praying? Right? If I don't know what I'm saying, if I don't know what I'm doing, why would I do that thing? Whether it's hijab or salah or whatever it happens to be. And for many of us, this seems like a very rational way of approaching. Oh, I want ma'rifah. I want a deep understanding so then I can practice. So, okay, let's take that idea. Let's put it on the side for a second. Is that the same idea that you apply every other place in your life? That idea of, if I don't fully understand the picture, if I don't know the inner workings of how this is going, then I'm not going to do it? Like, okay, sure, let's take a step back. This is the same example I used with that brother who had the question about salah. I said, look, when you get a headache, you take some sort of, right, NSAID, right? Some sort of Tylenol, Advil, you're taking some painkiller, basically, right? But yeah, like, okay, do you know how painkillers work? Do you understand what's going on with inflammation or anti-inflammatory? Any of these words, do they mean anything to you? Or you just pop a pill when you have a headache? No, I just take the pill. Like, why? You don't know how this stuff works. Why are you taking it? Well, obviously, we can talk about vaccines and masks. Yeah, people have some general idea. Yeah, they prevent this and they do that. And DNA, I don't know, whatever. They have some idea, but if you really want to break down what's going on with these, vaccine and mask stuff, okay, the actual details most of us won't know. But what is the same thing that's repeated over and over and over again? Well, trust the science. Let the people who do the research, let them research it, and here's our conclusion. Take a shot, get a booster, wear a mask, etc. And most of us say, yeah, and then you're going to blast it on social media constantly. Trust the science. What's wrong with you people? Go and, get your shot and get the booster and put on a mask. So that's how it happens there? Okay, fine. When a mechanic tells you you have a problem, say, okay, fine, whatever it is, let me get it done. So in every other part of our life, we don't know how it works. Right? If you want to go have chai afterwards, do you know how caffeine, why is it that people have this boost of energy? It's not like the caffeine is giving you energy. That's not what it does. Right? And there's so many examples you can think about. We don't know how these things work, but that doesn't stop us from doing it. It doesn't stop us from acting. We trust that a certain system was there. The system makes sense, so we're going to follow their conclusions. Does that mean we can't ask questions? No, you can ask. Be curious, research, fine, do all that, great. But don't let not understanding be a block from you from acting. Don't let religion be something separate and make these double standards. I don't understand how namaz works or hijab works or any of these things about Islam. I don't get it. Why khums? Why sahm sadat, sahm imam? All these things. If you want to research, go right ahead. But we should all hopefully have a good enough understanding of the system. Do we have rational proofs that God exists? Yes. There's clearly tons of those. Okay, so I know God exists. I know He's just. I know He's the all-wise and the all-merciful. And I know that He sent down a specific system, this system that we all trust, the system of wilayah, starting from Allah, right, al-Wali, and then it comes down through all the prophets, then to the Ahlul Bayt, and then to our ulama, and it continues. Then that's how we get all this information about Islam. If you have rational reasons for believing all of these things, then why don't we believe their conclusions too? If they're saying that this thing is wajib and this thing's mustahab and this thing's makruh, if the same way we want to trust the science, well, why don't we trust the hawza or trust the ulama? Why is there a break there? So if we're going to be consistent, let's be consistent everywhere. You don't know the reasons for these things? Okay, no problem. That's okay. You can do the research, but don't let it be something that stops you from acting when you know that I trust the system. I trust God. I trust the system that He's given to me. It's rational. It makes sense. Every single thing that we have in terms of our system of ibadah has a blessing and a benefit for it, whether physical, metaphysical, or, of course, all around. If I don't know it, well, that's my fault. I have to go do the research. And inshallah, hopefully Allah provides us the tawfiq so that maybe we understand. And if we don't, that's okay too. We can't go and know everything. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Okay, now that that's out of the way, let's talk about this idea of a spiritual approach to understanding, let's say, all these various issues in Islam in terms of women's rights and women's fiqh and ahkam, etc. So there's a few different ways we can look at it. An initial question is, well, why are there two genders in the first place? Is God just like, I know I could just make humans all the same, but I'm bored, let me make two of them. Is that the idea? Is there any wisdom behind it? Some people would say, all right, let's jump to science. Let's see what science has to say, why there's two genders. Is there any reason? Now, normally I can kind of go on with the conversation and talking about two genders as if it's something that everybody agrees upon. We're living in a society, unfortunately, where, even 1 + 1 = 2 is not something that people agree upon nowadays, right? You can believe whatever you want. You can identify as whatever you want. So, I don't know what to say about that, right? There are two genders. It is a biological fact. It's an Islamic fact. It's a Quranic fact. Now, if we don't agree upon that, again, that's something maybe we can open up for discussion later. But this is just showing us how far removed we are from basic reality that it's intuitive to everybody. But society is pulling us away from these very obvious truths. Everybody knows this. But then certain ideas creep in and they become a movement. And now all of a sudden, now you have to be careful and pronouns and all this stuff. And I don't know. It's crazy out there right now. Khair. So let's just say we assume, okay, why does science think that there are two different genders? I don't want to toss out all the scientific stuff. That's not the point. But yeah, there's different reasons they might mention in terms of biology and evolution. Some talk about, well, there's different speculative theories. One is, well, when you've got two different genders that, you reproduce in that sense rather than, one, asexual reproduction, you have a greater chance for genetic variation, right? That's one thing. Some talk about the idea of mutation repair, that when it's spread out through two, there's a greater chance of repairs happening, over time or in an immediately thing. If a certain, let's say, recessive trait comes about, it can be repaired quickly, right, over time, and it won't just get passed down throughout generations. I guess all these theories, again, you can look into it yourself, that's fine. That's one way of kind of looking at it, is that there's a good reason for why that happens. But that's not going to answer our questions here. But that's a part of it, right? The fact that at least right now, although again, some scientists, because they're caught up in all the politics and the social movements, they're moving away from objective facts too. If we at least understand that, look, even science recognizes that there's a benefit for two genders, our question then has to be, okay, then scientifically, empirically, physically, we see some reasons for it, some theories for it. What are the metaphysical reasons though? Why are there two genders? Why did God do this? And this is going to take a sort of paradigm shift for us. It's not going to be easy to understand. It's not going to happen in 5, 10, 15 minutes. And inshallah, if we get a chance, maybe we can open up more of it in the Q&A part. But one of the ways we can start to understand it is taking even a step back. Before we even ask why there are two genders, why male and female, why did God do this? The first initial question we have to think about is, why are there human beings in the first place? What's the purpose? Because if everything God does, which we know has a purpose, He doesn't do anything that's abath or a waste of time or lagh, it's not useless, nonsensical stuff. Everything God does, everything Allah does, every action has purpose. There's a wisdom behind it. So we know, okay, in Surah Dhariyat, right, Surah 56, Ayah 61, Allah's telling us exactly what's the reason for the creation of human beings, right? Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسِ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. The only reason that we created jinn and humans is so that you can do ibadat. Now we pause there and say, okay, God, are you telling me the only reason you made us is so that we can pray and fast and pay khums and do all this stuff? That's the reason? There's a bunch of actions? Seems a little superficial, doesn't it? Like, well, look in the hadith and we see that the explanation is يَعْبُدُونَ means يَعْرِفُونَ. It's ma'rifah. Ibadat, there's a connection to this idea of gaining ma'rifah. So then, when we take that tafsir and that explanation, the only reason human beings and jinn have been created is to gain ma'rifah. And for those of you who have paid attention to the Quran, if you notice that in that ayah, there's actually a ya, technically, that's hidden at the end of that word ya'budun. So it's technically ya'buduni, which then means, if we add the tafsir, it's ya'rifuni. The only reason that Allah has created us is to gain ma'rifah of Allah. That's why He made us. Again, I'm going to skip some logical steps here. Hopefully you're following along. If you are, send aloud salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. If you're not following along, then, I don't know, throw a tomato at me or something. I don't know what you're supposed to do in this. So, Allah's saying, the reason you've been created, humans in general, is to gain ma'rifat of me. What is Allah? Allah's perfection. So what does Allah want us to do? The reason you're here, the reason we're all here, is to understand what is perfection. That's why we're here. Now, there's two ways we can figure that out. There's two ways that any person in any regard can get to that intended goal, any intended goal, right? Either you can do things independently, you can try to get to something on your own, or you can use teamwork and be dependent on something else. Imagine running a business. Usually in the initial stages, you're running things on your own with solo. When you get to a certain level, right, maybe because you've got to put more resources there, demand is getting higher, you need HR, whatever it is, you need more people to help out. You have to start delegating some of this work. It's too much. One person cannot do it. So now we combine this idea. Say, look, what is Allah? Allah, in one sense that we can understand, again, I'm trying to simplify this discussion, we recognize through the Asma'ul Husna, these beautiful names of Allah. Allah says, you by yourselves will never ever understand all of my names, right? You can never understand the Allah that is really Allah. Only Allah understands Himself, that's it. But I need you, I've created you so you can try to understand perfection, to try to understand me. The thing is, you can't do it on your own. So I've created a system for you so that you can figure this out. In order for you to understand perfection, to manifest my divine names, the Asma al-Husna, I've delegated and split up the work between two of you. Some of you will be males and some of you will be females. And this concept you see constantly mentioned in the Quran. Like for example in Surah An-Naba, وَخَلَقْنَاكُمْ أَزْوَاجًا. We've made you in pairs. Over and over again, you see everything in creation, there's pairing to it. And that's what male and female are. They're pairs to recognize and understand one another. And in this system of divine names, right, understanding the basics of humans, you can boil it down again scientifically. You can say, we're a bunch of atoms or particles, whatever. If you want to look at it from the more irfani, philosophical, metaphysical lens, what we are combinations of Allah's names. That's what we are. And you boil it down. That's what we are. Have whatever, 5%, Ar-Rahman, and 20% Ar-Rahim, and 30% this, and 30% that, whatever. I don't know if I got to 100%, but whatever. We're all different tarkibat and compositions of God's names. That's what we fundamentally are in the paradigm of Irfan. Then we say that, okay, in the same sense where Allah split it up gender-wise, the names are also split up like that as well. We have one half of these names, which are known as Jalali names, these names of might and majesty and power. These masculine names, you can call them. And then you have the asma, which are jamali, these names of beauty. And these then become the feminine names. So we have Allah, again, dividing His names to make it easier for us to understand. And as we manifest them on this plane as well, they're manifested in two different genders. The masculine names are more easily manifestable through men. And then these feminine jamali names are more easily manifested through women. This is the initial paradigm that we have to start thinking about as we move forward in the discussion. If you can recite a salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Look, I'm trying to cram like intro to Irfan in like 5 minutes. It's not going to be easy. Hopefully, to some degree you got it. I think you've heard some of this stuff before, so, hopefully it's there. Now we say, look, just like any other place, if things are going to be delegated to different individuals, the tasks are going to be different too, right? The CFO and the CEO are going to be doing different things, for example, right? The way in a business or in any sort of team, right? If you have a volunteer team over here, some people will work on cleanup, some people will work on setup, some people will work on, whatever it is. You will delegate those affairs. For every single set of delegation, based on the tasks that they have to accomplish, based on their specific goal, then the rules are going to be different for them too. So, since there are metaphysical differences, which come down to the physical level as well, then the physical laws are going to be different as well because they're connected to that metaphysical reality. What they represent is different. And in fact, if we wanted to take this to what many scholars believe, this idea of men and women being equal, that we hear all the time in Islam, yes, men and women are equal, it's about your taqwa. Many scholars say, no, that's nonsense. It's not the case. Men and women are not equal. Say, well, what do you mean? Again, some groups, some people will come and say, see, look, ar-rijal qawwamuna ala nisa, that means men are better. And then they've pushed this idea down for a long time, some. But those, especially those who have a more mystical sort of influence, the urafa, they say no. It's actually the female gender, sorry guys. The female gender, the females are superior. What do you mean the females are superior? How is that possible? They say those Jalali names, those are the ones that Allah always introduces to people. When we say Bismillah, we start with Jamali names. Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahim. Those are names of Jamal, not Jalal. The names that we're all after, we want Allah to forgive us. Al-Ghafur, Al-Ghafar, Al-Latif, the subtle one, the one who takes care of us. Ar-Rab. All of these ideas are all the Jamali names. We all want that, in a sense, kind, motherly figure. You don't want, daddy to come with the chappal in his hand and, take you out. But Allah is also Shadidul Iqab. He also punishes. He's Al-Muntaqim. He takes revenge, right? He's the avenger. The avenger, I don't know if yeah. He's Ar-Razaq. He provides the risk that we need. Ar-Raziq, right? All these names. These are Jalali names. Nobody cares about that stuff. Like, okay, yeah, we want that. We want Allah to be Al-Hafid and protect. But really what we're after in our life is more of those feminine, motherly names. And that's why Allah says, look, I'm introducing you 113 out of 114 times when you're reciting my book, you need to start with these names. And it's an instruction for us too, that whenever you engage with other people, you have to start with these two names too. An all-encompassing mercy and a very specific type of mercy. And you can see these same qualities, again, normally speaking, will play out more so in women than they do in men. When you talk about the idea of nurturing, you don't think of fathers. Yes, fathers should be nurturing, but it's a more easily manifestable quality in women. And that's why Allah says, now if you want to combine and understand all these ahkam, where they belong, say, well, now figure out one of the main goals that have been divided between men and women. Women, mothers, are in charge of creating insan and making this child into a real insanul kamil. That's their job. That's their duty. Not only are they physically the ones who are providing and giving life, then after birth, they're also nursing them and continuing them in terms of their life. They're providing that initial tarbiyah as well. All of these are because they're the ones who are creating human beings. They're giving them that quality of insaniyat. So men, what are we supposed to do? You need to make sure that all the variables, all the elements are in place so they can do their job with comfort and with ease. You need to make sure that the women have a shelter, a proper house, the way that they want. You need to have, the food that they deserve, clothing that they deserve. Everything they have, that's an obligation for men to go and do. Now, can a woman go and earn and be educated? Of course they can. Nothing wrong with that. But for men, it's a wajib obligation as a husband to go and provide all of this. Because men, in a sense, what we are, we're just, again, not to diminish us, but we're worker ants and worker bees. That's what we are. Providing for the queens. That's our job. It's a difficult task, but creating and sustaining human life is much, much more difficult, right? Much, much more difficult. And it's interesting, right? The way that we talk about, those who choose to be, what's the term? Stay-at-home moms, right? In modern society, that's seen as a disgusting, a low thing. Like, oh, you're not educated, you're not going out, what are you doing? It's interesting, that term and the way that we describe it and the way that now society has described it, there's specific agendas behind why they do that. Right? When they say, oh, you're just a housewife. They make you sound like you're a house cat. Previously, the word that was used was homemaker, not housewife. You're a homemaker, meaning you are making the home. You are the one in charge of this. Interestingly, in Arabic, the word that they use is Rabbatul Bayt. You are the Rabb, you are the Lord of the house. They are the ones who are managing all of the affairs over here. The ones who are sustaining and creating the family environment that's needed so that once this happens, this family, if it succeeded, then this same strong family, when they come out into society, then you have a real and true community. And this is why you see in the words of the ulama, for example, like Imam Khomeini, Qaddasallahu Sirru, they say that the Holy Quran is something which is supposed to build human beings. That's what the Quran is there for. He says, women are the manifestation of this Quran in the same way, that they are also designed to build insaniyat like that as well. He says, once you start to see that this idea starts to change in society, immediately you'll see the degradation of society. Now, I don't need to give the studies. You can go and do your own research. If you don't believe me, that's fine. There's many documentaries out there. And there's many movements that have said, look at modern Western society. And look at what's been happening here. The increase in mental health issues. The usage of drugs, of taking antidepressants, right? All of these things. There seems to be a few initial things coming from, let's say, around the 40s, around World War II. There are certain things that are going on there. Again, I'll give you some clues that you can go and do your own research if you want. Around World War II, all the men are out fighting war. And now all of these big business owners, you have your Rockefellers, etc., all these individuals who need their coal mines to be taken care of. They need to produce weapons and ammo for all the soldiers. They say, oh, women, you come out and support the effort, right? Why don't you come out of the houses and take care of this now? Once women came out of the houses, who's left at home? And now you see in a modern society, when for various reasons, even basic economic survival reasons, you have to have a two-income house. When they're not there, who is giving the tarbiyah and the moral instruction to the children? You have media and social media, right? So now all that attention that I need, that I used to be able to get from a mother, that motherly love, is now it's over here. I don't need you anymore. And people always complain, oh, my child, they don't pay attention to me, they don't listen to me, I can't make a connection with them. And I asked them, I said, how much time did you actually spend with them when they were younger? Right now at your dinner table, when they're telling you, oh, mommy, daddy, this is what happened at school, you're like, yeah, sure. They're just going to copy what you're doing too. If you didn't pay any attention there, if your attention was driven on work, you're a workaholic, or you got caught up by social media, or you just came home and had to watch cricket or football or whatever, they're going to copy the exact same thing. And they're going to do the same thing. And once they get old enough, they say, once we get our independence, we're done with you too. And you see that, there's various different types of feminist movements. One or two of the movements are actually known as conservative feminism or neo-feminism. And it's much different than the other sort of types and waves of feminism. And their claim is basically what we're saying here, is that the destruction of the modern household is because women have left their traditional roles, those initial feminine motherly roles that they had. And once the TV set got put there, and then movies and all these other things, and media became the source of it, we lost our children, we lost our families. And that's where now everything else has come, and we see how society has been functioning the way it is. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. So when you see all these narrations would say, heaven lies at the feet of women. People say, see, mothers are great, that's why heaven lies at their feet. Like, yeah, it does lie at their feet. But that also means hell is at their feet too, right? Either they can, through the feet, through the training and tarbiyah of a mother, of a woman, she can either lead people to heaven or she can stomp everybody out and lead you to, straight to hell. Both of these options are there, right? We don't want to just take one side of it. We take the other side too. Now again, there's a lot of things I have to skip through because there's a lot here too. Given this framework now, if we accept it and we understand it to some degree, that they're Rabbatul Bayt, they're these queens, then they have to be able to be given the freedom. They have to have emotional, spiritual, and physical stability so that they can engage in the greatest ibadah that there is, of training an insan, making insanul kamil. If they are unable to do that, it's going to have an effect. They're not going to be as effective in the household. So you see many a times, and I've dealt with many family counseling issues where when you have both the husband and wife, the mother and father are both out working, it's very difficult to come home and still have that patience and mindset there to, because your kids haven't seen you all day and they want to talk and they want to play and they want to do all this. Like, I just came from, 9 to 5 or 9 to 6, whatever. It's tough. They run, they jump, they want that attention. And sometimes people don't have the energy to give that. I've seen many cases of this. Right? Again, this is not about judging individuals. That's not the point here. The point is we have to be realistic, that this has an effect. That's why Allah said, look, the obligation for working outside, that's on the men. So that with the proper variables in tune, the women have whatever stamina and ability that they need to run the household, they have that ability. And that's why also you see that in traditional households in the East, for centuries and centuries, the ones who were running the household affairs were women. They had maids and servants who were, helping out with cooking and cleaning. They had a village to help out with, taking care of children. Not everything was dumped on the laps and the shoulders of mothers. Now you see this idea of, women need to do it all. And it's become a huge strain. And that's why you see, when you're looking at the statistics, mental health issues predominantly affect women more than men. See, male mental health issues will only affect men. But for females, the mental health issues they get is one that comes from being a female. And because they take on male roles as well now in this society, they get, this double strike, double whammy. They get both of these. And some statistics show that this same breakdown does not happen in traditional societies because the women don't have to take on these extra additional roles. There's some sort of, social welfare system or a different economic structure in play. Even think about this, we're talking about the personality of Sayyidat Fatimah Nisa al-Alameen alayha salatu wassalam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. I wanted to talk a little bit about Tasbih of Fatima, but I don't have the time to. But just think about it, right? When we hear the story of how Bibi Fatima received this ibadah, this tasbih from Rasulullah, we focus on that last part. Oh, she got this tasbih, it's the greatest dhikr, greatest ibadah. Yeah, great. It's better than 1,000 rakats of salah. Yeah, great. How did she actually get that gift in the first place? The reason she went there is because the housework was too much for her. She was there, her hands were cut and bloodied. Imam Ali notices this and says, go ask your father we need help in the house. He has, maybe extra servants or slaves or maids. We need somebody else to help in the housework. You can't have all of this work on your shoulders. Men, you have to pay attention to what's going on in the house. If your wives and the mothers of your children are struggling like this, it is your job. God has put the obligation on you to make sure that that's not happening. Either you have to budget or get an extra job or do something else so that the women can be in a situation where they have that freedom to do what they need to do in the household. So this paradigm then, when you're looking at, for example, the hijab one, I won't have really time to talk about that. If you're looking at just the basic fiqh, even in terms of marriage, there are almost zero obligations on women in terms of marriage. They don't have much to do. But for men, they say that there's 99, maybe 100 different obligations that a man has to do, of paying nafaqah, doing this, going out and doing X, Y, Z. If you break down just the wajibat in terms of marriage between, for men and women, what the duties are, men have all this stuff to do. Technically, a woman could be at home and do absolutely nothing except sip on mango lassis and watch Bollywood movies all day if she wants to, right? I'm not encouraging that, by the way. I mean, both of those things, because I don't like mango either, but you're like, what kind of Pakistani kid is this? He doesn't like mango. I don't like mango, I don't like cricket, I don't like any of this stuff, but yeah, I'm too American, I don't know what to say. So, everything is going back to this idea of pairing, that the divine names have been split up. And now when you take everything in its rightful place, all the other ahkam will hopefully start to make more sense. For example, I'm going to give you a few more before we end. This is why in traditional Abrahamic faiths, especially in Islam, that's why we say, an-nikah nisfuddin. Getting married is half of your deen. And that's why the Prophet is saying, if you don't get married, you're not from my ummah. This is one of my major sunnahs. If you're not doing this, there's a problem with you. Why? Because it has to do with your spiritual building. You can only achieve so much on your own, as a male or as a female. You can only manifest and understand half of God's names by yourself. You can't do it all. And that's why when the male and female come together in this zawjiyah, this pairing, this marriage, which is why we have this focus on traditional marriage, right? Not these other definitions. Traditional marriage is because of the metaphysical implications. In order for me to understand the Jalali names of Allah, I need a female to understand that. I can't understand it on my own. And likewise for a woman, for a female, she needs to understand the Jalali names, which you can only understand through a male. And that's why this traditional household is emphasized in Islam and hopefully other religions which keep these metaphysical principles in place as well. Why is it, for example, Yeah, some of these things are, if I talk about it, I'll get too much. Okay, inheritance, for example. Well, again, quickly, why is it that not in every case, but in some cases, women will get half or less than a man would? It's not every case, right? Some cases, actually, women would get double, right? If, let's say, a husband passes, then it's the widow who's there, she's going to get more than any of the children will. So it's not always women are getting less. So again, this is a misconception. There are some cases where, yes, maybe the daughters will get less than the sons. You say, okay, that's not fair. Well, hold on a second. Who in their lives, who has the wajib duty to go out to earn and to pay for everything? It's the male. The male, in the future, if they get married, they have to provide for the females. What wajib duty does a woman have in Islam to pay for anything? Nothing at all. So, in Islam, a male's money is never his own. This has to be used to provide and take care of his family in the way that they deserve. For a female, they now have the ability to, if they decide, to take that money and to have it express those Jalali names. If you look in history as well, the wives of the companions during the time of the Ahlul Bayt, what they would do, whether they got the money from inheritance or part of their nafaqah from their husbands, whatever it was, a lot of them sat on a lot of wealth. And what they would do is then they would set up things for society. They would be the greatest philanthropists in society. They would go to, for example, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And they would say, Ya Rasulullah, we have this much wealth. Who do you know is in immediate need? We want to go and take care of that. What can we do in terms of building an orphanage? We want to help with that. We know that some of the women in the society, they need extra help. We want to pay for that. We want to do this and do that. This ability to express that mercy and love, they did that through using financial means as well. But again, nowadays, because of various different factors, we are all stuck in this rat race, paycheck to paycheck, and all this money is focused on all these other type of different things. The initial family structure is being destroyed. This idea of having a metaphysical reality where we're trying to understand our journey towards Allah, seeing that in each and in the other gender has been completely destroyed and eliminated. And if we now want to, again, I'll give you like a clue before we end. If you now want to perhaps understand how do I want to phrase this? So sometimes, I say something, I say I want to stop, but then I feel like, no, I can't stop. I have to keep going because somebody's going to yell at me afterwards, right, if I stop there. Right now, in modern society, what are the qualities or features that everybody thinks are the greater qualities? Oh, you have to be intelligent, you have to be logical, you have to be rational, you have to go out and work and be educated in this way. Provide, work in the corporate environment, right? Help this company's stock points jump up. Everything is out there in the open, right? Be somebody, be recognized, all this stuff. All of that is Jalali. That's the problem. And everything is being pushed in that direction. One of the names of Allah is Al-Batin. He's also the hidden one. And they say this is one of the Jamali names, is being hidden, being out of sight. When you take this name and recognize that it's a Jamali name, then some of the other ideas about women's ahkam and their duties they make a bit more sense. Real beauty, real ma'rifah is not meant for everybody. Not everybody can handle a real understanding of Allah. You mentioned a few points about metaphysics, even stuff like this. People are probably triggered already. I don't know. It's possible. When you start to describe some of the deeper realities of Islam, people don't like it. We know very famously, Abu Dhar, if he knew what was in the heart of Salman, he'd say, this guy's a kafir, I'm going to kill him. We know that this, even among the companions of Rasulullah, this was an issue. We know that Sufis and mystics, Urafat, they hide a lot of their information because they know people will misuse this, misunderstand this. The Jamali names of Allah are secret names. The true understanding of Allah is something which we say is the only ones who can understand this are those who are mahram. This is the spiritual word that's used. Allah's true understanding is not meant for the na-mahram. Now you can understand why this idea of hijab only belongs to those who have the Jamali names. Why there's a hiddenness aspect that's encouraged for women, whether it's physical covering, whether it's in terms of, as we see in some of the riwayat attributed to Bibi Fatimah az-Zahra alayha salatu wassalam, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Where in some reports she says the best thing for a woman is not to be seen or heard by a non-mahram. They shouldn't hear your voice or all of this, even if the person's blind. Well, it's because she's manifesting that hidden quality. Even think about her lifestyle. Any of the women of the Ahlul Bayt. I know nowadays we have this push on, Bibi Fatima, Bibi Zainab, Bibi Khadija, Bibi Masum al-Qom. These are all paragons for feminism. I can't stand that. Do not abuse the name of the women of Ahlul Bayt with these modern slogans. It's really disrespectful. This is not in line with their lifestyle. And I know people, what they do is they cherry pick, they take one or two events out of their life and they say, see, feminist. Oh, Bibi Fatima stood for her rights at Fadak. She's out in the open. She's a feminist. I said, why did you just destroy 99% of her life and grab one thing towards the end? A Fadak. What about the rest of her life? What else was she doing? How are you going to understand these other narrations? Bibi Zainab, she stood against Yazid and Ibn Ziyad, right? When she gave her khutbahs. And she gave a khutbah in Kufa and all this. Like, yeah, that's true. What about the rest of her life? Why is it that for her, it's so difficult for her when Umar ibn Saad drags her through Kufa like a slave in the middle of the day? Why is it that Umar ibn Saad on purpose waits outside the gates of Kufa when they stop at night? Because they know Bibi Zainab, whenever Imam Ali would bring her into Kufa, whenever he would invite her, he'd say, bring her at night so that people couldn't see her. She wanted to maintain that haya, to maintain that manifesting of al-batin, somebody who's hidden, somebody who's reserved. Not everybody gets access to a perfect individual like this. A ma'asuma who's ghayr mu'allama. She's not being taught. She has this high maqam. Not everybody can understand her. And that's why they said, let's drag her out through the day so that she can lose that dignity a little bit. Bibi Ma'asuma Qum. Same thing, she's a very reserved individual. But again, same thing. If you look at their lifestyles, there's a lot of hiddenness and mystery to their lives. Why is it even right now, we have these different Fatimiyahs? Why don't we know her Shahada date? And the Urafa explained, there's a secret here. We don't know her birth date. We don't know her exact date of death. Maybe because as a manifestation of these names, things have to be hidden. We're not supposed to know all these things. Physical characteristics, keep that hidden. Everything needs to be kept in this hidden way. And then if you understand now how all of these ahkam try to relay the same fact, that women, because of being a manifestation of these Jamali names, everything then tries to push for this idea of manifesting the hidden nature of Allah. Be hidden. Only allow those who are, your family, those who are mahram to you, can you expose and express that inner beauty that you have. But no one else should have access to that. In the same way, that true understanding of Allah is only accessible to those who are on this path. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. These points about the efforts of Bibi Fatima, the struggles that she had to go through in her life, make her musibah so much more difficult. And we talked about last night the difficulties that she went through in her life. And even with all that she went through, she still tried to maintain her duties, right? To manifest these same duties, to be a good wife at home. And we say one of the more difficult things is that, according to some historians, that even with her broken rib, she was still trying to take care of her children, to try to manage the housework. And Bibi Fidda would come and say, Bibi, what are you doing? Let me take care of this. She says, no, this is mine. I want to do this. I enjoy doing this. This gives me energy. This gives me pleasure to take care of a house like this. But that same broken rib and that same effort that was expressed by Bibi Fatima there, which was a source for her and pleasure for her, was something which broke the heart of our Mawla. Now take your hearts to the difficult time as they are performing their final wida and farewell and the ghusl and takfeen of Bibi Fatima. Imagine just the state, a husband, a father, he's lost his young wife. He's had to see all these difficulties in her life. He's now with his 4 children, none of whom are older than 8 years old. Maybe 8, Imam Hasan, 7, Imam Hussein. Bibi Zainab and Kulthum, very young as well. Right? Maybe 6, and some say Kulthum was only 4 years old. These young children now are watching their imam, watching their father cover and wash the body of their beloved mother. They spent barely any time with her. This must be so heartbreaking for them. The dhulm that they had to deal with, the oppression there. We know how we are advised to express, to cry, and to grieve when it comes to Abu Abdullah, to shed our tears, to grieve. We're not the ones who hide grief, we express our grief. How difficult must it have been when the people of Medina say, Ali, tell your wife to lower her tears. We don't want her crying all the time. How difficult must it have been for Imam Ali to tell his children, while we are saying goodbye to your mother, Fatima, we have to make sure we're not loud. We can't let people know what's going on over here. We have to go bury her in secret. Can you imagine Imam Ali, some historians say, trying to teach and instruct and work with his children performing the ghusl of their mother Fatima? Maybe this is where he says, Ya Hasan, Ya Hussein, bring some water so we can wash the body of your mother. Maybe he tells Kulthum and Zainab, bring a kafan so we can shroud the body of your mother. And as they are there, and as Imam Ali, they say, was passing his hand and washing the body of his wife, they say, then some narrations say, he goes and starts banging his head on a wall, screaming loudly, crying loudly. And they're saying, Baba, why are you crying like this? You told us that we shouldn't be crying loud like this. Why are you crying like this? He says, Ya Fatima, what have you hidden from me? He said, oh my children, if only you saw, if only you knew what she was hiding from me, you would have been crying louder than this. And as they're performing, he says, now say your final wida before we bury your mother. They say that Imam Hasan went and gave his mother a hug and he placed his cheek on her cheek. And Bibi Zainab and Kulthum went as well to the body of their mother and they hugged their mother tightly. But based on what Bibi Fatima had said previously, in her wasiyah to Imam Ali, according to some, she said, Ya Abul Hasan, take special care of Imam Hussein, take special care of our Hussein, because he is very, very dear to me. He's dearer to me than anybody else. And because of that attachment, my death will be very, very difficult for him. Some narrations say in those final moments, when they were all hugging and saying salam and her final wida to Bibi Fatima, Imam Hussein, they say, was in the corner and was unable to come forward to Bibi Fatima. And he was shedding tears and crying and wasn't able to say his wida. And they say, according to one narration, this is when the hand of Fatima comes out from under the kafan and her hand moves and says, Bunayya, Bunayya, Ilayya, Ilayya, come to me, Hussein, say Khudafis to me one more time. Imam Hussein comes, he falls on the body of Bibi Fatima and begins crying loudly. They say, Imam Ali says, angels had come down and told me, remove the body of Hussein from the body of Fatima. Nobody in the heavens can handle the tears of Hussein. ألا لعنة الله على قوم الظالمين وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون رضا بقضائه وتسليما لأمره. Ya Allah, we ask you by the right of Muhammad and Ali Muhammad, we ask you by the haqq of Fatima Zahra to forgive all mu'mineen, mu'minat, all of our marhumin, marhumat, all Muslimin, Muslimat. Give us the tawfiq to be able to manifest these names of Allah as we've been given. Help us understand and form tighter bonds in our community as families, as mothers, as fathers, as husbands and wives. Help us understand these secrets of the women of the Ahlul Bayt, especially Bibi Fatima. Help us honor her tradition by maintaining that traditional understanding, and give us the wisdom to be able to keep ourselves and safeguard ourselves in these difficult, trying times in this modern society. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Matame Hussein.
Hussein.
Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein. Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein. Hai Zahra, तेरी तन्हाई है, तन्हाई अली की है ज़हरा, तेरी तन्हाई है, تنہائی علی کی ہے زہرا، تیری تنہائی ہے، تنہائی علی کی ہے زہرا ہی ہے، تنہائی علی کی ہائے غم میں تیرے جاتی رہی، ہائے غم میں تیرے جاتی رہی، بینائی علی کی تیری تنہائی ہے، تنہائی علی کی ہے زہرا، تنہائی علی کی دربار میں ظالم کے گئی بنت پیمبر، کیا وقت تھا کچھ کرنا سکا فاتح ہے خیبر، ہائے ہنستے رہے غربت پہ تماشائی علی کی تیری تنہائی ہے، ہے زہرا تیری تنہائی ہے، علی کی پیغام ولایت لیے گھر گھر گئی زہرا، شوہر کے لیے ڈھال تھی جب تک رہی زندہ، ہائے دنیا کو بتاتی رہی سچائی علی کی تیری تنہائی ہے، تنہائی علی کی ہے زہرا، تنہائی علی کی کہتے تھے علی زہرا سے کیا حال ہے بی بی، اب ہم کو سلام کے بھی کرتا نہیں کوئی، ہائے ہے باد نبی کیسی پذیرائی علی کی تیری تنہائی ہے، تنہائی علی کی ہے زہرا تیری تنہائی ہے، در جلتا ہوا فاطمہ زہرا پہ گرایا، محسن کی شہادت کا سبب بن گئی دنیا، ہائے تصویر مکمل نہیں ہو پائی علی کی تیری تنہائی ہے، تنہائی علی کی ہے زہرا، تنہائی علی کی باہر کبھی حجرے میں کبھی قبر نبی پر، ہر رات کی تاریکی میں اولاد سے چھپ کر، ہائے نکلی ہے تجھے ڈھونڈنے بینائی علی کی تیری تنہائی ہے، تنہائی علی کی ہے زہرا تیری تنہائی ہے، زہرا کی جدائی کو لگائے ہوئے دل سے 25 برس مولا نے چپ چاپ گزارے، ہائے ایک حجرے میں کل دنیا سمٹ آئی علی کی تیری تنہائی ہے، تنہائی علی کی ہے زہرا، تنہائی علی کی اس وقت تکلم وہ زمانے کا ولی تھا، सजाद जो ज़ैनब को लिए शाम से गुज़रा, हाय इस्लाम को खामोशी बचा लाई अली की, तेरी तन्हाई है तन्हाई अली की है ज़हरा.
Mohammadin, we are about to have our short Q&A session starting real soon, inshallah. I would like to hand over the mic to Brother Ali Rizvi to MC this. Bar Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad salawat.
If people also want to make their wuzu in the meantime, I think we'll only have around 10 minutes, so it'll be a really short Q&A, and then inshallah we'll have azan. If we can also keep the questions on topic to the speeches, that would be great. First, thank you so much, Sayyid Hasan, for coming all the way from Orlando and blessing us with these two amazing speeches that you've given us and sharing your knowledge. So for him, please let's recite a loud salawat.